Hi, everybody. Today we are going to be doing operations with radicals. It's kind of a culmination of everything we've done so far in the first 4 lessons. So you can see in the learning targets, we're going to distribute with radicals and we're going to FOIL with radicals. If you remember back from unit 7 with FOIL, there's a lot of multiplying and adding. So that's why I'm saying it's kind of a mix of everything we've done. All right, so what operation is associated with distribution and FOIL? You should think multiplication when you see that. Can we put together unlike terms with this operation? Learned that last lesson that yes, you can. But the main thing to remember when multiplying, numbers outside the radical can only be combined with other numbers outside the radical. Numbers inside the radical can only be combined with other numbers inside the radical. We can't do any of those flip-flops and multiply outside stuff with inside stuff. When you do that, that's when mistakes happen. Okay, distributing is not too difficult as long as you remember what I just said with the outside with outside, inside with inside. And when you do this, make sure you understand that like what I mean by outside and inside. Like 3 right here, that's outside the radical. It's outside the parentheses, but it's definitely outside the radical. There's no radical there to be inside the radical. So I'm going to take 3 times 2 and 3 times that. 3 times 2 is 6. What do I multiply the 3 by? Well, the stuff on the outside, since 3 is outside the radical. So 3 times 4 is 12, radical 5. I cannot put those together. I am done. Yes, some of them are that quick. Number 2, 5 is inside the radical. Okay, so I'm going to multiply this over, but that only goes with the inside stuff. So this 2 on the outside doesn't get multiplied by anything, but the 2 on the inside does. It's 2 radical 10. Square root of 5 and square root of 5 is the square root of 25. Now the thing with a radical, multiplying it by a radical, is you might have to simplify at the end. 10 does not simplify, but the square root of 25 is 5. And we want to simplify that. Right, square root of 25 equals 5. Right. All right, number 3. Now I got a number 1 was a number outside the radical. Number 2 had a number inside the radical. Number 3 has both. Just keep it straight. 5 is outside, multiplies by outside stuff. So 5 times 8 is 40. There's no radical with the 8, so it's radical 6. 5 times 2 is 10, and then 6 times 5 is 30. You want to check, can I reduce any of those or simplify any of those? 6 does not simplify, 30 does not simplify, so we're actually done. So 40 radical 6 minus 10 radical 30. Last one here. 3 times 7 is 21. Radical 2 times radical 2. Don't try to get cute here and simplify it right away. Just multiply it. 2 times 2 is 4. I know that simplifies, and a lot of you probably already saw that it simplifies. Don't try to. That's where, again, mistakes will happen. 3 times 4 is 12. 2 times 6 is 12. All right, so 4, this is now a problem very similar to what we did in lesson 4 with adding and subtracting. Square root of 4 is 2, no radical. 12, square root of 12 is 2 radical 3. Well, these are going to be unlike radicals, so they're not going to combine. 21 times 2, though, is 42. And then 12 times 2 is 24 with a radical 3. And that's my final answer on that one. Okay. So in the first 4 examples, the ones we just did, we are multiplying a monomial. A single term into a binomial. What happens when we multiply a binomial into a binomial? I've already said the word or the acronym, I guess, but it's FOIL. So you know FOIL from unit 7. Okay, we are going to be multiplying 4 things together. So 2 times 4, 8. I guess the one piece of advice here is don't try to simplify and multiply in the same step. Go slow. Outside is 2 times negative 2. That's negative 4 radical 5. 3 radical 5 times 4 is 12 radical 5. And then 3 radical 5 times 2 radical 5. This is usually the one where people mess up. That's -6, but it's not radical 5 now, it's radical 25 because they both have a 5 radical. Now I combine and simplify. I can combine these to make +8 radical 5. -4 plus 12 is +8. I can also simplify 25, right? Square root of 25 is 5. Now I can do 6 times 5 and say 30, right? And that's -30, right? That's -30. But then I can put 8 and -30 together. 8 and -30 is -22 plus 8 radical 5. Another way of writing that would be 8 radical 5 minus 22. Either way is fine. Okay, I know that was a lot. I did it pretty quick. We're going to do a couple more of these. 7 times 4 is 28. 7 times -5 radical 2 is -35 radical 2. Negative radical 2 times 4 is -4 radical 2. Negative radical 2 times -5 radical 2, that's a negative times a negative, is +5 radical 4 here. Okay, couple things to do. I can also simplify that. So I'm going to do kind of both in the same here. So 5 square root of 4 is 2. Nothing happens with 28 yet. -35 and -4 is -39 radical 2. So this becomes 10, right? So take the time and write it out. 28 minus 39 radical 2 plus 10. And now I can combine 28 and 10 and say 38 minus 39 radical 2. That's my answer. Couple more. Remember with squaring, it's not just square both terms. This is a FOIL problem. Just happens to be that both binomials are exactly the same. All right, so square root of 6 times the square root of 6 is the square root of 36. This is going to be 5 radical 18. This is going to be 5 radical 18. And this is going to be 25 radical 9. Now, a lot can happen on this one. Okay. So, square root of 36 is 6. Square root of 9 is 3, but 25 times 3 is 75. All right. These two can combine to 10 radical 18. So I got 6 plus 10 radical 18 plus 75. Well, 6 and 75 makes 81 plus 10 radical 18. But the problem is radical 18 can actually be simplified. So I'm going to go over here and then I'll delete it later. So I've got 81 plus 10 radical 18. I got to break down 18. That's 3 radical 2. And there I get my final answer of 81 plus 30 radical 2. A lot of steps, a lot of things to check for, but nothing difficult, hopefully. As long as you understood everything before this, like every lesson before this, you should be able to do that. Okay. Now, number 4, you may remember something like this back in Unit 7, called when we multiplied special cases, but something cool happens here. 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times negative radical 10 is -4 radical 10. Radical 10 times 4 is +4 radical 10. And then that's negative radical 100. So that's 16. What happens with the middle terms? -4 radical 10 plus 4 radical 10 makes 0 radical 10. They cancel. The square root of 100 is 10. 16 minus 10 is 6. If you type that in the calculator carefully and correctly, you will get 6. The answer is a number here. Like they've all been a number, but in a whole number, no radicals. Okay. So we're going to look at this problem below and connect what we just did with number 4 to what we're doing here. Okay, before I do this one, I am not going to test you on this. but it is good to see this happen. Why is this not in simplest radical form? There is a radical in the denominator. We can't have that. We talked about that in lesson 3. Multiply top and bottom by radical 2, but that doesn't help me here. I'll show you why. If I do that, I get 7 radical 2 on top, and then I got to distribute this radical 2, and now I have 5 radical 2 minus 2. I still have a radical in the denominator. Nothing happened. That won't work. So what do I got to do? We must multiply by the conjugate. It's a funny word, but an example of a conjugate can be found in number 4 above. The conjugate of 4 plus radical 10 is 4 minus radical 10. And what happens when you multiply those two conjugates together? The middle term, the radical term, cancels, and you're left with just a number. That's why multiplying this problem by the conjugate is how you rationalize the denominator. So let's do that. 5 minus radical 2, multiplying the top and bottom by 5 plus radical 2 is what we need to do. Oops, sorry. 5 plus radical 2. Now this is, imagine that's in parentheses, so I have to distribute the 7. So it's going to be 35 plus 7 radical 2. The bottom is going to be a number. And we got to FOIL it. So we go 25 plus 5 radical 2 minus 5 radical 2. We know those are going to cancel. That's why we did this. And then minus radical 4. But the square root of 4 is 2. 25 minus 2 is 23. That is the answer to this problem. 35 plus 7 radical 2 over 23. I have another one on the bottom. I'm not testing you on this. I'm probably not going to give you any homework on this. If you want to try it, go for it. You can ask me in class if you got it right. But I'm going to call this quits on that for now and be done with this lesson.